Karamoja, a drab square-like shantytown on the margins of the windswept Masese landing site in Jinja City, is the atypical definition of urban squalor. It is punctuated by mud and water houses, piles of excrement between houses, stagnant water, and unpleasant stench fanning across the air, and extreme poverty levels within the impoverished community. The majority Karamojong inhabited slum has been expanding over the last 30 years, thanks in part to the high Karamojong rural-urban migration and the rampant trafficking of women and children to the streets to beg. Yet despite the litany of life hardships here, the poor sanitation, poor living conditions, abject poverty, crime rates, and routine harassment by police, residents say life is better off here than back in Karamoja, a region known for the poverty amid its plenty paradox, says about deposits of variety of minerals including gold, iron ore, uranium, marble, and large tracts of flat, arable land. The Uganda Bureau of Statistics Uganda National Livestock Census, released in April, documented that Karamojong's 9 districts of Napak, Kotido, Nabilatuk, Abim, Moroto, Amdat, Nakapiripirit, Karenga, and Kabong have the highest number of cattle, sheep, goats, and cows in the country. Despite these resources, Karamoja remains one of the country's poorest regions. UBOS reported in 2019 that the region suffers the highest rate of 60.2%, way above the national average. Other reports on food insecurity have placed the sub-region status at 75%. These torrid conditions, poverty, hunger, drought, and general insecurity, marked by cattle rustlers from neighboring Kenya, and general lawlessness, has majority residents of the 9 districts on the brink. It is also for the same reasons that particularly women and children are increasingly at risk of traffickers, recruited as beggars in towns, sex slaves, or domestic workers. A December 2022 report titled Endline Study of Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children in Napak by the Uganda Global Fund to End Modern Slavery documented that the sub-region's extremely high rate of multidimensional child poverty at 84%, which refers to a lack of both material and social needs and a traditional acceptance of migration for livelihood increases children's vulnerability to commercial sexual exploitation.
People appears to have lived a lot on handouts. And so they want to feel that the children should go on the streets and begin to do what? To do the begging. So others learn from it, and so you find the cycle continues because of the issues of handouts. You realize that in this process, there are structures, especially what we call the perpetrators. There are those who seems to have institutionalized this. They recruit and deploy.
Most of them are being trafficked by their own parents. Some of them are trafficked by their sister-in-laws. They are trafficked by aunties. They are also trafficked by uncles and other relatives. So, and how they do this is the parents are contacted by the traffickers, and they negotiate with the parents, and then the children are taken to Kampala.
Either way, for the majority of residents in Karamoja, in Jinja City, and their accompanying hardships, life is better off here than back home. Irene Achia and her family migrated here in the early 2000s from Kotido when she was aged 8. They escaped severe drought and hunger, and her mother was torn between watching her children starve or start over as a beggar. She recalls that her mother had a relative who had lived off begging for some years. Now aged 32, Achia lives a hard-knock life.
I have suffered. There are those who threaten with rape. I engage in sex work, and there are those who are not willing to pay after using you. It's all because I'm looking for food for my children.
Following the death of her mother in 2004, an NGO pushed her through school until she dropped out. She went into begging but discarded it because she was too old to attract sympathy, then got pregnant at 20 with her first child and then a second one. Then her partner was killed in an accident. Got another partner who was killed by panga welding thugs while returning from work. She now lives on a veranda on a mud and water house of a friend with her children.
We were born 15 children and only 2 survive. One is in Nakapiripirit, but I'm not sure where exactly. I grew up in Ginger on the streets.
All she wants is the best for her 4 children. But like Achia, we talked to several residents who intimated that they moved here or from Kampala to here, first as beggars, having been recruited or lured by parents or extended family members. The dark underbellies of Karamoja is the surge street children from Karamoja, many of whom are lured by the existing trafficking ring, crime rates, alcoholism, extreme cases of gender-based violence, high school dropout rates, and high levels of teenage pregnancies and marriages. Some parents force their daughters into marriage and insurance policy against the poor living conditions.
We used to be harassed and mistreated, but now we're integrated and live and work together with the Basoga.
The leader of the community, Paul Cheruto, said they have survived here by living harmoniously with the Busoga community.
Here it is different, but I've heard in Kampala they harass the Karamojong, they get arrested, they don't work, and only beg.
Karamoja is one of the small pockets of majority Karamojong inhabited slums across the country where particularly women and children are caught between a rock and hard place, mostly getting by as beggars in the scorching sun or drenched days. In a fast, the Kampala Capital City Authority Court on February 22nd sentenced more than 100 Karamojong women and mothers to 1 month of community service after pleading guilty to sending their children to beg for alms on the street. The group of women, all from Napak district, had been rounded up more than a month earlier during the sprucing up of the city in preparation for the back-to-back 19th Non-Alignment Movement and the 3rd South Summit held at Commonwealth Resort Munyonyo between January 15th to 21st. More than 300 children were rounded up during the sweep. The prosecution told the KCCA Magistrates Court that the women's action contravened the Child Protection Ordinance enacted on June 8, 2022 that prohibits acts that encourage children to hoover on the streets.
I've said that these offences are very rampant.
Grade 1 Magistrate Edgar Karachire ordered the group of women and their children to be repatriated to the back district to serve their sentences and later rehabilitation. Following the sentencing, there has been a reduction in the number of Karamojong street beggars and many come to the streets at night. However, one peculiar detail is that the majority of those rounded up in the sweep operations over the last 5 years are mainly from Napak district. This is what authorities in Napak say.
This child trafficking appears to be a long history. And so because of peer pressure, somebody's son or daughter or child goes there, they bring her out, others see, and then they also begin to get a push factor. So finally you find themselves in the street. On the other hand, you know, Karamoja, given its tradition as cultural institutions, but also it looks like the cultural institutions have become very weak.
Are not even taken in big numbers. I think they have a mechanism that we are yet to find. Because if these children were taken in numbers of 50 or maybe 100, it would be easier to get them. But unfortunately, I think they take them in smaller groups. That's why it's not even easy to actually get these children maybe during the time of trafficking, because we have so many roadblocks on the way.
The group of 308 children, many of school-going children, were split into two groups. One group of 107 pupils were admitted to boarding school at Lokodokodoi Primary School in Naitakwe Parish in Ingolorate Sub-County, and another group of 201 to Lotome Girls Primary School in Lotome Sub-County.
Find that some of them even know how to read and write. They are really committed in being in the class.
The issue of institutionalizing the children is not as per se. It is to support a process of rehabilitating the children, to have enough time to offer them psychosocial support. For these children to change their attitude, they need enough time so that they are taken through, they accept, they are resilient, but we are working concurrently with the families.
The two schools are, however, grappling with a shortage of essential items for the pupils, including food and clothing, and have to rely mostly on well-wishers, NGOs and UN agencies that have long operated in the sub-region, which raises questions on how long the pupils can be kept in school. The Napak District Senior Probation Officer, Molly Nangiro, told NTV there is a method to this madness.
There is no way out apart from education, better education for these children. Otherwise, in the community, at home, it's not safe for them. So the issue of keeping the children in school is something, as a probation officer, I shared with my top leaders. I was like, what do we do? This is institutionalizing the children is not the right thing. But for us to achieve, for us to help these children achieve their dream, we have to do it in a better way, not in a way that it will look like they're in a prison.
The way that we accepted the parents to come and visit them by the procedure of registering a child, the child's name, the sex, the class, the name of a parent, the village, the sub-county, the parish, and then after that, we take a photo with the child and the parent. And then when the time of this child interacting with the parent, that we don't leave them alone to interact with the parent. The soldiers are there and the social workers to know that to hear what they are talking of. Because if we leave a parent with the child, we might not know what the parent might be telling the child.
The Napak District Resident District Commissioner, Ahmad Fadosa, said it is both a medium and long-term solution.
Is it practical? Because normally the habit was bring the children, take to the parents, but somehow they go back to the street. But this time we said, let's keep them in school even during holidays. So we want them to stay in school for 3 years, no going back home. And we have also talked to the parents. If they want to visit them, they can visit them, but no taking any child out of school. We have also put security there, so we have the UPDF there.
Fadosa said the decision was informed by common sense, while Nangaro said they want to create change agents.
We did not want these children to go back to the parents straight away, because normally when they go back to the parents, somehow they are taken back to the streets again. They find themselves on the streets. So that's why we came up with a mechanism as a district. We were like, how do we contain these children here?
We want the parents to see and to believe and also to support the children in school. That's why we're giving some period, okay, rehabilitation period for both the parents and the children. The process of offering psychosocial support is not one day or one night. The children need us for a period of time, until such a time they are able to stand and say yes, not streets, but schools.
The Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, Robert Owili Abia, said trafficking and migration is a long-standing issue.
And in this case, our research has shown that this poverty It's just poverty of the mind. Somebody has so many herds of cattle, but the person still says, I'm what? I am poor. Of course, gender-based violence. The family institution seems to have broken down, with also weak cultural institutions.
Abia explained some of the existing loopholes.
Alcoholism. The rate of drinking here is too high. People wake up in the morning and they are drinking from morning up to evening, up to the next morning. So back home, the children are starving. So at the end of the day, the children are also saying, let me also go and look for what can keep the family.
Authorities intimated that the problem of trafficking revolves around 4 sub-counties of Lope, Iriri, and Matani out of the 14 sub-counties comprising the district.
Kids have adapted what the parents were doing. And now the movement of these kids are fueled by us, the parents. By these very locals, they are parents of these young kids. Where does a kid get the money for traveling, boarding a car?
These children are beyond Uganda. In Uganda, for instance, you find them in Kampala. You find them in Busia. You find them in Jinja, Mbale. You find them in Masindi and Iganga. But outside Uganda, they have gone to Nairobi. They're already in the streets of Nairobi. And also, report has shown that some of them have moved up to Ethiopia.
We don't really understand why Napak alone. According to history, what we hear, the first people to go to Kampala, especially on the street, looking for life, were people from Napak. So I think those people inspired other people here to start going to the streets of Kampala. So I think some of them made it by that time because some missionaries, some NGOs took them up and educated them, and they were able to survive. But that was really long time ago.
The Iriri sub-county chairperson said, Napak, like many districts of the region, is grappling with many challenges that push people away.
The insecurity we are talking of is not only one. It's not only cattle theft. The insecurity is all about even the water we talk of, we are insecure.
Such is the case of 19-year-old Sharon Korobe, who lived on the streets of Kampala for 5 years as a beggar.
I went there because my mother was having nothing to eat. We are even offered, even my mother is offered from outside. Now I say that, other than me staying at home, let me also go and look for some work. I get something, I send to you people also.
When she returned recently to bury her father, she met roadblocks returning, but is optimistic will return someday.
People, you want us to steal or what? Other than stealing, I have to go and I try sweating by myself other than stealing. You go and steal, they kill you there. What can I do?
But begging is not good, don't you know that?
Even though it's not good, Papa, it's better to help. Other than me, I'm sitting here, nothing I'm eating.
According to Napak district authorities, between 2019 and 2022, 1,381 street children were repatriated and reunited with families, although it is believed many have since gone back. Generally, it is expected that some 3,600 children and women are on streets in various towns of Uganda and Kenya and as far as Ethiopia.
They are saying that as the children are undergoing rehabilitation, as children are undergoing learning, as children are, we are supporting them psychosocially and then medical and, that holistic kind of support. We are also preparing the families to support the children such that in 3 years' time, even in 2 years, if we find that there is a positive feedback from the families and the parents, the children will be able to now have holidays at home.
These children have been in the streets for long. And mentally, they need to be guided. How I wish this interview we are conducting would be conducted when you actually physically saw these children when they were brought back. Some of them in the process of begging, they are stuck up like this, up to now as we talk. That is the state they are in. Some of them, even when you are talking to them, they feel a little bit what? Scared. You see that? So it means that their mental state requires to be addressed.
One time we also went to the communities and we were asking communities, like, are you aware that your children are on the streets? And they said, yes, we are aware. And then we also asked them that, have you ever reported a case of missing children? If it was not the parents involved and other relatives, then they would be reporting cases of missing children. But they don't report that because they are aware that their children are what? Their children are actually on the streets.
For long spells, Karamoja was stereotyped, marginalized, and ostracized, and although that is changing, thanks in part to the steady flow of donor-funded recovery programs, after almost 20 years of disarmament, a long road remains ahead. Northern Uganda, Karamoja included, received over 4 trillion shillings in various stimulus interventions whose results on the ground remain subject of debate.